Hey everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video, which is based on one of the design challenges which I run over on Patreon. Now, if you've not heard of that, it's where each month I ask my patrons to name some suggestions based on a theme, and then I create something from that suggestion. Now, for this month's suggestion, it was actually July, but we're a little bit late getting this video out because I was trying to perfect this product. For this month's suggestion, I asked them for either a fruit or a vegetable, and then depending upon what actually got drawn out would depend on the format it took on, so whether it was an oil, a puree, that sort of thing, and then that would also reflect on what product I made. Now, I put all the suggestions into a soapy jug, and the one that came out was from Lorraine, and she wanted to see me use apple. Now, I've already been working for quite some time on a new facial gel. I get so many requests to have hyaluronic acid in a product, and I've been working on this facial gel with the hyaluronic acid in it. Now, one of the things with hyaluronic acid, can we say that word anymore, is that it does a really good job at hydrating the skin, but only on the surface. The molecules of it are actually too big to penetrate too deeply into the skin and hydrate from the bottom out. So it really only hydrates the very top of the skin. So I'd been trying to incorporate an oil into this facial gel that would actually penetrate the skin and hydrate at the bottom, as well as have that hyaluronic acid hydrate the surface of the skin. I'd had a couple of ideas for oils, but when Lorraine's suggestion came out for apple seed, I decided, or for apple, I should say, I decided that apple seed oil was going to be the perfect addition into this facial gel because it is super hydrating, very soothing on the skin, and is excellent for people with dry skin. So I decided to incorporate apple seed oil into my hyaluronic facial gel that I was creating. Now, the thing with this facial gel is that unlike my other facial gel serum that I have, I wanted to steer clear of xanthan gum. Xanthan gum is a thickener which is very readily accessible to small crafters, and is really good for thickening up products, super easy to use. However, there are a few downsides to using it. Products can go a little bit gloopy, and they can also take on a bit of a sticky feel. And I wanted to move away from that. So I've been testing a few other thickeners, and the one that I've settled on for this particular product is Carbomer 980. It doesn't feel sticky. It has a really nice gel-like consistency and isn't gloopy and snotty-like is what I call it. So I have been practicing with that, and I am finally ready to release this facial gel. It's going to be available to my customers to purchase on the website as of now. And I'm also releasing this recipe over on the DIYbodycare.com.au website for any creators who are interested in getting this recipe. Just make sure that before you purchase it, you can access Carbomer 980 as a thickener, because I don't have any alternatives for that in this particular recipe. You also need to have access to the preservative, which I talk about in this video too. It is a little bit more of an advanced recipe because of that Carbomer, but it's still super easy. And I'm going to show you now how I'm going to make this facial gel serum. And before we do that, the recipe is also available to my creative Patreon members for the next 3 months, and to my Artisan members for the next 6 months. Just remember, if you are watching this video at a later stage and you're interested in this recipe, by becoming a member, just message me first to see if it actually is still available or whether you have to purchase it separately through the website. Anyhow, enough of that. Let's go and see how I make my new hyaluronic face gel that features apple seed oil. Let's go. Now, before we jump into measuring out our ingredients, the first thing you do need to make is a very weak lye solution, anywhere from 10 to 20% lye solution. I chose to use a 10%. So into my container, I mixed 90 grams worth of water and 10 grams worth of sodium hydroxide. If you don't want your solution to be this volume, you could make it so you've got a total of 50 grams, 45 grams worth of water, 5 grams worth worth of sodium hydroxide. If you've got really good jeweler's scales, you could even weigh out 9 grams worth of water and 1 gram worth of sodium hydroxide and just make a very small amount if you don't think you're going to be making a lot of this product. But what you can do when you have got your lye solution sort of made up, pop your made up lye solution into an appropriate plastic container or a glass bottle. Your plastic needs to be a number 5 so that it doesn't degrade the plastic. Do not use your PET bottles because it will corrode that plastic and leak everywhere. Trust me, I found out the hard way in my early days. But now that I have actually got this made up, I will transfer it into another container once I have made this batch. But for now, we've just got this 10% lye solution, and this is integral to making this product. Now, before anyone starts panicking about having sodium hydroxide in the product, because we're generally told it's in soap and we've got all these serious warnings about it, the amount that goes into the product is so minimal, it actually doesn't affect or hurt the skin at all. And you'd be surprised at how many commercially made products and even food has sodium hydroxide in it in this format. So no worries about this. This is perfectly safe to use, but we definitely need it for the thickener that I'm going to be using. So let's start measuring out these ingredients. Now, as we do when we use xanthan gum, we need to hydrate our thickener before we can do much else. So to do that, I'm going to pour my water into my container. I have got distilled water here, and I highly recommend using distilled over any of the others because there is absolutely no purities left in it or impurities left in it after it's gone through the distillation process, whereas demineralized can still have some of the heavier ions and metals left in it. Now that we've got our water in there, we're going to be using our thickener, and I'm using Carbomer 980. I've got this from off of New Directions, but I'm sure if you Google it, you'll be able to find other places that have got it too. And I am going to weigh out what I need straight into my water. It is a this is only 100 grams worth of powder, but you can see it takes up a lot of volume here. What I am going to do, because I actually only need a very small amount, I'm going to get my jeweler's scales. I'm going to pop it so you can actually see what we're doing here. Let's move this scale over just a little bit. Bring in our jeweler's scale, and I'm going to tear it and then weigh out what I need straight into my water here. So let's go again. Now, I have been told that you should be able to stir this powder and it will dissolve into the water. But I have found through my experience, especially if you're only making small batches, that this does not always work. So if you are making a large batch, I have even done it when I've made a 50-gram test batch, I highly recommend getting an immersion blender out and making sure it's mixed in fine and firmly. So let's get that happening. Now it's very difficult, but you want to introduce as few bubbles as you possibly can at this stage when you are mixing. I have got a few here, so hopefully they will disperse once we get this thickened up. But if you've got a lot of bubbles in it, it is going to show in your gel. But I should be right here. What I will do though is use that trick that we use with so many other things and just give it a little spray with some isopropyl alcohol just to burst a majority of that bubble there, because we don't want it really in our final product. Now that we've got that pretty much mixed in, there's a few little lumps. Let's squish that down. You don't want any super big chunks in here, but when we get into the next sort of steps, they will they will disappear. But that's looking really good. If you are having trouble with getting it to disperse, just leave it for about 10 to 15 minutes just to really allow it to disperse within that water. But I'm pretty happy with how that is looking. So we'll grab our scales back here, and I'm going to add in my other hydrating ingredients. Now the first one I'm going to add in is some glycerin. So we're going to pop that in here like so. So this is just going to add moisture into the skin. All right, we've got the right amount there. And the next really important ingredient here, I have got hyaluronic acid in a 1% liquid solution. I have not done this recipe based on using powder. If you prefer to use the powdered format, you may actually need to adjust the numbers. So we're going to add in our hyaluronic acid in here. So let's pop that in. And we will give that a good stir just to make sure that that is all fully incorporated. Now you can actually start to see, it's very hard on the camera, but as you are mixing this, you will actually start to see the viscosity of this change. So it's no longer that water sort of feeling. It almost looks like, if you're a soap maker, when you make a 1-for-1 lye solution where it's just that really got that real thickness to it. But this is not the texture that we are looking for to go into our facial gel. What we want to do is use our lye solution to neutralize that carbomer, which will make it swell more in that water and thicken this up to a really nice consistency. But you do not need a lot of it, so you need to be really, really careful. Don't go tipping it in. You really do need to have, which I'm going to grab now, a pipette to be able to do this. When I'm making a 50-gram batch of this, I literally need 2, maybe 3 drops to get this to work. What I'm going to do is give you a bit more of a zoom. So again, we've got that sort of consistency here. I've just got my pipette and I'm going to add, let's start with 3 because that's what I know I put in my 50 grams, sorry. So I should need probably close to 10 sort of drops on this one, I'm going to say, but it is going to change for everyone. Give it a bit of a stir. I'm just going to add another 3 or 4 drops in there. And kind of remember how many drops you are putting in, so next time you make a batch, you'll know what you need to add in here. You can see it is starting to thicken up even more. So we've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And give it a really good stir as you're adding this in here. And you can start to see, it's going to be a bit harder, but on the bottom I'm starting to get a little bit of a clear gel coming through, and I can really feel the viscosity changing. So we're not quite there yet. I'm going to add a few more drops. And suddenly it will just change. So don't just stand here, keep dropping and dropping. Just add a few drops at a time and give it a stir. And you can see it is really starting to thicken up now. I'm going to keep adding a few drops until this thickens up. I think we are pretty much there. Yes, we are. Can you see that it's gone from that white cloudiness and it's come up clear? And you can see we've got this beautiful thick gel that has formed. I don't know, I think that's so much fun to do, and to watch it come up into this clearer sort of gel-like consistency as opposed to that white consistency that we have. It is looking, I'm really happy with that consistency there, and I added in about 15 drops, but when you're doing it, there are going to be things that are going to determine how many drops you are using. So what's actually happened here is that when we put our water into the container and then we put in the Carbomer 980, combining the two of them together, I should have actually shown it, it does actually drop the pH of the solution down, and I was getting about a 4.5 reading on my pH, but you need to have a slightly higher pH to get that Carbomer to swell and to thicken. So adding just those few drops of your sodium hydroxide, which is high in pH, it increases that pH just slightly and allows this to thicken back up. Now, once we add our other ingredients in there, we're going to get a really nice pH on this product. So let's start doing that. Now, with hyaluronic acid, what most people don't actually realize is that this works by hydrating the very surface of the skin. Most people think it's really deep and penetrating, whereas it's actually not. The molecules of hyaluronic acid are too thick to be absorbed down into the skin layers, so it only really hydrates the top of the skin, and we put that sort of protective layer on to try and keep as much locked in. So what I'm going to do to actually help bring more moisture into the skin, I am using this apple seed oil. I'm just going to give it a bit of a shake there. It does have a slight aroma to it. It doesn't come through too much in the product, but just enough. So you can actually play with your essential oil blend, or you could even just go completely unscented and just really work with this particular oil. But I'm going to add in my apple seed oil like that. I am also going to add in some jojoba, which is a liquid wax, and it is very, very similar to the natural sebums that are produced on our own skin. So it is super good for the skin. I've got more information on the recipe sheet about it. We just need a touch more. Now I'm also going to add in just a touch of vitamin E into here as well. That's going to protect those oils as well as give some skin benefits. I am going to add in an essential oil blend here. Now, because this is going on the face, I'm going to be super careful about how much I put in. I'm just going to weigh it into, you can't see what I'm about to do, so let's grab our little scale here. I am going to pour some of this into the cap, onto my scale, and tear it out. And I do it this way because my bottle is actually too heavy for these little mini scales. And then I'm going to use this scale to make sure that I pull out just the right amount. I don't want too much because I don't want to be irritating eyes or it getting into the mouth and potentially being swallowed. So there is the essential oil blend. And finally, one other really important aspect for this is the preservative. And the only preservative that I've found that's going to be commonly accessible for people that can be used, I believe it's called Euxil, PE9010. A lot of the other preservatives are not compatible with that Carbomer thickener. So you really do need to be very, very careful with your selection of preservative. Normally I use Nipagard SCE, and that is not compatible with Carbomer. So if you do add it in, it is just not going to work as a preservative. So I do highly recommend for this one the Euxil. I will find out what other preservatives could be used so that you can make a choice and include them in the recipe. But what I'm now going to do is just give this a really good stir. I'm not going to use the immersion blender because I don't want to incorporate any bubbles into this gel here. So I'm just going to give it a really, really good stir here. You can see my essential oils have given this a little bit of a yellow tinge. If that bothers you, just make sure you are picking your scents or your essential oils so that they are clear. I say essential oils, you could use fragrance oils. Personally, I do not use fragrance oils in any of my facial products. I just don't like the idea of, even though I use fragrance oils in a lot of my other products, I'm not keen on having them in products which go close to the eyes or could potentially, be ingested through the mouth. So I do prefer essential oils, but you could use a fragrance in here, maybe even a natural fragrance blend. But that is our new facial gel, and oh, it looks so nice. Unlike when you use xanthan gum, this has got a really, really nice viscosity. It doesn't split, it's not sticky, and it just feels so divine when it goes on the skin. But now that we've got that mixed up, I'm gonna go and get my containers and we're gonna start packaging it up. Now with this facial gel, there's a couple of ways in which you can package it up. You could put it into some little jars and allow people to scoop it out. But I personally feel with the consistency of this, it is going to be easier to have it in some form of pump tube. And I highly recommend serum pumps. They produce, a serum pump will give less product than what a lotion pump does. And I'm just using these ones. They're the same ones that I use. I'll grab this one here. They're the same ones I use to put my other facial gels in. I get these from Off New Directions, but you can also get bottles and purchase different serum pumps as well. And it just gives you that perfect sort of amount to use. But as I said, you could put it in jars as well. Now to make it easier for me to get it into these little pots here, I am going to pour this into my bag. Now you could pour it straight into the containers, but I just know that if I try and do that on camera, I am going to end up with it absolutely everywhere. I'm not going to pour all of this in here because I know I made enough so I can make some samples to send out with orders. So we'll just start with that amount there. I've just popped it into a piping bag. Now just keep in mind this is quite runny, so you don't want to be holding this up too much when you are cutting it, otherwise it's going to all run out the end. I'm just going to put a small cut off the bottom. I've already scaled these out on my scales there. Let's pull them a bit closer so we don't make too much of a mess. And then I am just going to start, generally when I've got a like piping bag like this where it's actually quite runny and hard to handle, I just start filling the containers to a certain point, and then once I've got my bag into a sort of more manageable sort of state, that's when I then start topping them up. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. You can see at the moment I get like little drips, so what I want to do, rather than popping them onto the scale and swapping and changing containers, I just find this way a little bit easier. So I'll get I'll get all of these partly filled. Right, so you can see I've now got my bag into a bit more of a manageable state where it's not all pouring out the end. And what I'm going to do is just pop my container on the top and then finish topping it up to the correct weight here. And one of the tricks with these containers, you don't want these too full, otherwise when you push these lids on, it splatters everywhere. So let's give it a bit of a tap, pop our lid over the top and push down, and that is our facial gel now in its serum container. I'm going to do the same with all of these, and then we'll come back in just a moment and I'll show you me labeling them up and what the final product will actually look like. Something I did forget to actually show, I have taken a pH measuring of this one. Unfortunately, my pH meter has broken, so I'm back down to using strips, but you can see that it's sitting at that 4, almost up to that 5 sort of mark. It's a little bit darker than that 4. So we're sitting at a really good range on this facial gel serum. I'm going to finish getting these lids on here, and then I am going to go ahead and pop some labels on them. Now, if you do actually want to increase your pH of this a little bit because it is low, you just need to add in some more of your sodium hydroxide solution, but just keep in mind that can actually result in thickening this up even more. Oh, I must have had the wrong amount in that jar because it's squeezed all out, so I'll have to clean that one up. But I'm going to keep doing this and then I'll show you the final product. So the facial gel serum is now complete and all labeled. All I have to do now is take one of these home and photograph it so I can get it up onto the website. I also made some little samples. I always make samples when I make batches of products, especially brand new ones, and send them out to customers so they can have a try of products before committing to buying a large bottle. So these will be going out in orders as well as in shop purchases as well. So I'll pop that in there. Now on my shelf, I will also have a little tester bottle. So just to show you, squeezes out into a lovely gel. It feels so super light, and that hyaluronic acid gives it a really light, cool feel. All you have to then do is dab it onto your face and just gently rub it in, just to give that, you know, nice hydration. It feels so lovely and cool on the skin as well. And unlike products that do have xanthan gum in it, it doesn't have that sort of sticky feel to it. It's just so light on the skin there. So hopefully I have got that all rubbed in properly. Now, if you are a customer, this facial gel is going to be available on the website soyandshea.com.au from August. If you are a creator, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you are interested in the formula, this is on the DIY body care website to be able to purchase from there. Or if you are a Patreon member on the creative or artisan levels, this is available to download as part of your member benefits. Just remember that it's only available for a limited time. So if you are watching this video in the future, it may not be on the levels anymore. It may be a paid version. You can also find it in the Patreon shop as well. If you are watching in the future and you're wondering if it's still available on Patreon, just message me first before joining and I can let you know if it is or if it isn't. Otherwise, your best bet is to jump over onto the DIYbodycare.com.au website and go and check out the formula there. So that is it. I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me as I made the facial gel serum. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one and I'll see you then. Bye.